Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to do Fantastic Four, issue 231 by Marvel Comics. Yes, this is a classic. This was one of the many Fantastic Four comics that I've grew up since I was little. Can you imagine, guys, that this comic is from 1981? Yes, it's more than 40 years old. That's fantastic. That's actually fantastic. And this is a odd one too, because you see, hey, villains, Fantastic Four, yeah, it's going to be a fight, right? Well, yes and no. Let me explain. So, first of all, let's dive in, and we are being directly introduced to the villain, if you can call it. Is this the villain of the story? Well, he's calling himself Stygorr or something, and he senses a presence in his realm, and he wants to, execute or dispose of that threat. Because in the last issue that I unfortunately don't have, I have the Dutch version, not the American version, the original one. There is a guy called Ebon Seeker. Fantastic Four defeated him. As a result, the Fantastic Four, Baxter Building and a part of New York is being transformed into the Phantom Zone somehow. And, Stygorr wants to, eliminate that threat. And people are noticing that they are not in Kansas anymore. So they are going to find out what's going on. And we're being introduced this little kid here, this police officer, this hot dog seller, the store owner, and also Lou Shiner, who is, Anyway. So the Fantastic Four is a little bit worried about what's going on, and they, having the usual fallout between each other, especially between Ben and Johnny. I always loved that. Not really hostile, but they argue a lot. Let's leave it at that. Anyway, and Reed explains what's going on. So it seems that they are, of course, in the I want to say Phantom Zone, but that was the other stupid comic, in the negative zone here. And normally when they go into the negative zone, they are going through some kind of a, some kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Distortion area, it says here, that's in front of my screen. So that they can safely enter and, enter and, leave the negative zone, because, they are, Earth, we're living here in a positive zone, and negative zone as well. If they cannot exist with each other. So there's a force field around this whole, area of New York, including the Baxter Building. So Reed explains here what's actually going on and what the threat is if they go back. And they are going back because it seems that they are moving, they are flying because of the gravitational pulls that are, frequent there in the negative zone. So Reed says, as we near the distortion area, we first be warped into the subspace, but that just might destroy us. And it seems that the subspace is according to Reed, a non-realm which links our own universe with the negative zone. In fact, he says, it's my theory that subspace could be the gateway to an infinite number of space-time continuums, even to alternate realities. Now, I like that, although we never explored that factor. Yes, we have now, unfortunately, multiverses, which is, in my opinion, the worst idea being milked from Marvel, because, nothing matters now, because we have now a million versions of Spider-Mans and Hulks and Captain Americas and Venoms, etc. And although it's not all real, so these hacks of the writers, modern writers, say, it's not the real one, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, listen, it's just stupid. They're just milking everything to death. The fact that there is a alternate universe with different kind of Fantastic Fours, looking different, but only behavingly different. That's interesting. Unfortunately, modern writers, I say it again, cannot write if their life depends on it, because they basically create the same character, but this one is gay and black and disabled. That's the only thing they can come up with. And there's no difference in personality, well, except that they're all gay, and it's just terrible. It's just terrible. Anyway, moving on before I go into a rant again. Reed says, the danger we face after the very interface of subspace and the negative zone, for there lies anti-Earth. So when I read this for the first time as a very, very little boy, I was completely confused, and now I am confused a little bit too. So an antimatter double of our world, surrounded by a destruction debris belt of meteor and particles. Well, I've seen that debris and particles very well, but I believe, I could be wrong, but I never seen anything of anti-Earth. You know, that part is being explored into in the phantom zone. In the negative zone. I mean, is that basically Earth, but then, you know, with instead of positive, they are negative, I guess. And are there superheroes there? Are there monsters there? I mean, we have, you know, Annihilus, we have Blastar, we have Stygorr. Are there more threats there? Is this people? Are there warts? Are they distorted? Are they evil? Are they? I don't know. I cannot remember if that part is actually being explored. That Fantastic Four went to that Earth somehow. I could be wrong. If you know it, please leave a comment, because, well, I have a lot of knowledge, but, you know, I cannot read all of the comics in the world, unfortunately. Anyway, moving on. So yeah, basically they need to avoid that so that they can safely enter the distortion area that transports or teleports the Fantastic Four and the part of New York back to where they came from. But since Fantastic Four themselves went there a lot, the force field is mostly contained to those people and maybe a spaceship here and there, or a group of people. But this is a complete part of the city, which makes it a little bit difficult somehow. Okay, I get that. But then the people are getting restless, so they know that, you know, Fantastic Four is the probably the reason that they are here. So they are a little bit revolting here, and this police officer says, "Hey, listen, we are a little bit concerned," and then but then, you know, we have Lou Shiner, you know, taking the leadership roles and riling every people up, and at some point, you know, Johnny's being fed up. So they are closing the door so that nobody can enter. But then Johnny says, trapped in a hostile ocean of darkness, surrounded by a mob who like to crucify us. Well, at least things can't get any worse. Poor Johnny. Poor Johnny. Anyway, ads. So we have here Stygorr. And he calls himself Stygorr the Night Lord. Somehow I just like those names. And this unusual looking character, I like it. So we see here Shiner, you know, is doing, you know, that speech, lining everybody up. Hey, let's go to the Baxter Building and, you know, force them to bring us back, right? Okay, that's exactly what they are going to do. So more science babble from Mr. Fantastic itself. So he says, we see the anti-Earth, we see the distortion area, and we see the subspace. So, okay, Reed says, somehow we must find a way to build up near infinite momentum so that the island, upon impact with the Earth of the distortion area, will turn inside out and turn back and warp back into a reality. So, but they don't have that momentum, so they need to create it somehow. That solution will come later in this comic book. Because if that's not the case, somehow the island will bounce off the distortion fields, you know, throwing back into the, gravity of the anti-Earth, you know, and like I said, positive matter and antimatter cannot coexist with each other. So, yeah, that's bad. That Stygorr comes out of nowhere and blasts the force field. And he says, I am Stygorr, Night Lord and Supreme Master of this realm. I shall not tolerate your presence. Okay, that's a little bit harsh, but okay. Good for you, Stygorr. Meanwhile, on Earth, young Franklin, Alicia Masters, and I believe this is the current love interest of Johnny, watching the television, and we see this blackness of where the part of the buildings were, and people are just afraid. But Franklin says, "Hey, they come back. They always will." Skipping a few pages. Now, what are these two? What are the Fantastic Four is going to do? He says, basically, he crafted a portal, and they want to confront Stygorr. But Mr. Fantastic says to Johnny, "Hey, I have to anchor myself. Just watch if my hand is not, getting loose. Otherwise, we cannot go back, and we will float into this part of subspace." Which is a little bit weird. He's made of quote unquote human rubber. He can easily wrap his arm around this piece of metal instead of holding it like this. Doesn't matter. Well, he asks Sue to help them if things get worse, because he needs to use a force field to reinforce the current force field around the whole island if things go wrong. So Ben and Mr. Fantastic goes in, distracts Stygorr, knock him out, but Stygorr just say, "Hey, hi, I'm not so defeated easily." Well, something like that. He says, "Your strange powers surprise me, yes, but in subspace, the powers of Stygorr is unconquerable." He says, "Know that I am equal to Annihilus and Blastar, those pretty negative zone upstarts, perhaps even they're superior." And his power is, he can turn his body into positive and negative energy. Okay, that's something. Meanwhile, we have Sinner, or Loose Shiner, is, going with the mob towards the Baxter Building, and this lonely police officer says, "Hey, go back. You cannot enter here." But, as you can see, that doesn't help. So he riles up the mob and, takes this guy prisoner and takes the gun. And but these people are a little bit concerned at what happens in front of their eyes, in the air. And there's now seeds of doubts are planting. Meanwhile, Stygorr says, "Yeah, fuck it. I'm going back to blasting that force field." So I believe if he goes through it, then probably the force field will collapse or something like that. Okay. Now these guys are at the entrance, and they use some kind of a dynamite to get into the Baxter Building. So Sue asks Johnny to interfere. He picks up the TNT, throws it into the air, and then Reed and Ben sees the explosion, and it gives Reed an idea. So he pulls, they're going back into the Baxter Building, and as you can see here, Johnny melts that piece of metal before it hits the concrete, and this Loose Shiner wants to kill him because he wants to go back. He's going crazy, and then finally the mob says, "Hey man, this is going too far. I need to stop you." That's what they do, but Loose Shiner is a lunatic. He says, "Let go of me, you weak, rebellious fools. You don't even know what's good for you. Can't even recognize your own best interest. You'll see, you come back crying for me, for my expertise, and I'll be back." And these are back, and basically Reed has an idea, and we also see a change of art, I believe now. So he says we need to use an explosion, and they want to use this part of New York that's being demolished by Loose Shiner, and use that TNT or that debris to create an explosion and then catapult them back into reality, in their own reality. So we see then Johnny going around that part of the area, and saying, "Hey, is everybody there? You need to get out of here. This part will be blown up." And he rescues this old geezer. But then Loose Shiner is here and says, "Ha ha, you fool. Does he really think I fall for such transparent ploy? They just want to capture me." Poor guy. Well, not so poor. Anyway, with his purple suit. More ads. Meanwhile, Sue uses her power to, create a wedge between this particular part that needs to be blown up. Stygorr senses a weakness and goes there and uses his powers to, concentrate on that force field. And then this is happening. So Sue pushes that part away. There is parts of debris floating or, shooting at Stygorr. Stygorr says, "Ha-ha," or something like that. "That's not going to faze me." He just turned his body into positive matter to repel it or something. But then Lou Shiner bumps into him while transforming, meaning they are merging together. And as I said before, positive and negative cannot coexist with each other, which results into a giant explosion, exactly what the Fantastic Four needs. Now, let me rephrase this. Okay, positive matter. Wait a minute. Self-styled Lord of Subspace shift the nature of this body from positive matter to antimatter. Okay. So at this point he was positive, and now he shifts back to anti. Okay, I get it. So this is happening, and then, Fantastic Four is getting blown back to reality. The part of the city is there, and I love this particular part that, she's very happy, and Franklin says, "Yay, they did it." It just made me feel good inside. And we see also Alicia crying from happiness. So everybody is going back to normal, and except for Johnny, who wants to kiss, I believe, called Laurie Melton, and she says, "Hey, listen, Johnny, it's all fine and dandy, but it's just fun, and I'm not looking for a relationship, etc." So he says, "Okay, so we're still being friends, right?" "Yeah." And she says, "Bye-bye, never see you again." Look at this body language of Johnny. Now, to be honest, I'm not feeling all too bad about this. He's being friend zoned because Johnny is a player, and he did some very, in my opinion, despicable things recently. While he, for instance, Dr. Doom was being married to a girl, and then Johnny slept with her, rekindling his hatred for the Fantastic Four again. So yeah, fuck you, Johnny. But since this is in past, poor guy, but at the same time, no. So we have a happy ending except for Johnny. And it brings us into this book. I like it that what I like about this comics, of course, everything, but there is no battle, if you will. This is just Reed Richards, who is still, in my opinion, underutilized as the leader, modern day comics, by the way, as the Fantastic Four, and his brain saved the day. So this whole comic is about getting back home, but at the same time repelling a threat, right? Using the brain instead of the powers and of the Fantastic Four to defeat it physically. I like that a lot. Guys, let me know what you think about this comic, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.